Thank you for sticking with us for our ongoing coverage from Black Hat 2024. I am Mandy on behalf of Security Weekly and Cyber Risk Alliance, or CRA-TV. I am joined now by Shimon Modi, the Vice President of Product Management at Dataminr. Shimon, thank you so much for being here.
Mandy, thank you for having me.
So I am very excited because even though we hear consistently around Black Hat and at other conferences about AI, I am actually very excited to discuss your viewpoint and the Dataminr push toward using publicly available data to create a more resilient cyber structure for your customers and across the board for all cyber threats. In fact, I think what we were just going to discuss is AI to the rescue. Now, do you mean that AI is, okay, it's all done and fine, everything is wonderful, and we can turn security operations over to AI?
Absolutely not, right? we haven't gotten to that point yet. I don't think we'll get to that point anytime soon. When we talk about AI to the rescue, there are two sides to the coin, right? AI is such a disruptive technology.
Okay.
It can be used just as effectively by the adversaries as it can be by the defenders. And when we talk about AI to the rescue, it's really thinking about it in a very thoughtful way. What can AI do to really lessen the burden that today's security professionals are under so that they can stay on top of everything that is coming at their organization, that is coming at their attack surface. And so when we really think about AI to the rescue, it really is from the perspective of how do we help human analysts get through some complex analytical processes with an increasing volume of information that they just have to process, and they just cannot do that. It's just not humanly possible.
Absolutely not. But so you're telling me that you and Dataminr actually care about the humans that are doing this stuff?
We absolutely do, absolutely do, and we do also recognize that humans will always be part of the solution. We don't think of AI as a silver bullet. AI is not going to replace humans. Artificial intelligence is supposed to be, in my opinion, and as we are seeing the space evolve, a way for humans to actually do higher order analytical work, right?
Yeah.
And I've been in the cyberspace for the last 25 years. For the last 15, have been building products that focus on human analysts that are doing a lot of drudge work, all the way from threat intelligence to threat detection to investigations, remediations. And my passion point has always been around how do we help these humans do the higher order analytical work so that machines can do some of the things that are just repeatable, or humans are just not capable of doing at a volume and scale.
Correct. So on a side note, is there something then that you're particularly excited about seeing happen within security teams because of effective use of AI?
Absolutely. And to take a step back, right? Dataminr's mission is to help security teams take faster actions against emerging risks and threats using publicly available information.
Okay.
Because we recognize there's a lot of signal available beyond an enterprise's four walls. There's just a plethora of information available out there, right? For a human analyst to be able to harness that so that they can take faster action is important. Time matters. Seconds matter, both from a physical standpoint as well as a cyber standpoint. And so to be able to detect these events that are happening in the public domain, recognize its relevance, deliver it to the appropriate organization with the appropriate context so that the analyst can take the appropriate mitigative action is core to Dataminr's mission.
That's fantastic. And I'm thinking, like, so with the focus on using data from disparate public storehouses, or, you know, the way that it is being aggregated and being able to use that, are you telling me that Dataminr's ability to take those trillions of points of data can apply not only to things like natural disasters, but also what threat actors are currently doing?
Absolutely. And when we think about public sources, there's a spectrum.
Okay.
There's a spectrum all the way from human-generated information that you can find on social media, that you can find on Telegram channels, that you can find on the deep and dark web, all publicly available. You may need special infrastructure to get to it, but if you have it, you can actually get to it. But then on the other side of the spectrum is machine-generated data. You have internet scanners that are generating large volumes of information, all machine generated, machine readable. You also have sensor networks and then code repositories. Again, publicly available, but machine readable. And so when we think about public sources, it spans this entire spectrum of human generated to machine generated, surface web to deep and dark web, and everything in between. And for us, AI has a very important role to play so that we can extract the right signals from all this information. And we generally think about AI playing a role in this across three main layers, right? At its very core, it's all about how do you detect the signal and classify it so that you can say, this is a physical risk or this is a cyber risk.
Okay.
Is this a fire or is this a ransomware attack? Is this leaked credentials? So really being able to do that at scale across millions of data points, trillions of computations, that's where a lot of the power of what we do from an AI perspective comes in. But then on top of that, as I was describing, there's human-generated information that we look at, that the platform consumes. Telegram channels, it's a discussion between threat actors. They are either doing a transaction, trying to figure out what kind of a campaign they want to launch. It's a blurb, right? Now for an analyst to kind of read through it and try and extract the relevant information, that is analytical work that should be automated. And so that's where we use generative AI to create the lead. Figure out what is relevant, who are the threat actors, how does this matter to you as an organization, and create that human readable caption so that they can get the right context at the right time. And something that we are very, very excited about now with some of the AI innovations that have come out in the last couple of years has been around how do you bring about stitching together this evolving time frame, this fabric of signals that you have into a live brief. Because again, that's what analysts want. Whenever there is some kind of an event, guess what happens? 10 tabs open up, you start tracking. What is the current event? What is its impact? And with every new information that you have with passing time, what is going to be the updated context behind it? And so again, AI has a role to play in bringing this context to the analyst so that they can then either modify, update, or double down on whatever the risk mitigation strategy they're following.
Which is extremely exciting, especially when you're the analyst or you're in the SOC and you're looking at it, being able to go, oh wow, I can spring to action now. Way more interesting than having to continue to search through all of the signals, all the information. And I am very interested because using the public data in different, not just use cases, but actually taking information from whether it was text or image or video or audio. I am so intrigued by how does each format play into giving actionable information to security teams. And I was curious if you would give an example, like how does an image data relate to extremely helpful information to the security organization?
Absolutely, and that's a fantastic question. And if we take a step back and think about all of those signals in an atomic sense, then it becomes a fragmented reality.
Right.
And what we have done from a Dataminr perspective is to really think about it from a multimodal fusion perspective and to make it real with an example. Ransomware attacks are just starting to increase, right? They're all financially motivated, so guess what they do? Break in, it's a smash and grab. Get in, get the data, put it up on their ransomware leak site, start their eBay clock, their clock, and say, within the next 24 hours, if you don't pay up, all this data is going to go into the public domain. Well, when they first go do that, guess what happens? They put up a screenshot of some data to show evidence that they actually have it. Then they may mention the name of the company. That might be a mention of a name, or it may not be the exact name of the company, or they may even use the logo of the company.
Okay.
Right? So now you have an image and giving you evidence of the data. You have a logo of the company that is the victim, and it may be in a language that is not English. It may be in a foreign language.
Fair.
And now you have this tapestry of signals across images. You have logo, computer vision. You have a different language, bringing it all together so that now you can deliver this unified risk event to the analyst is a game changer, right? That is where we see the multimodal aspect of this really come together. Now, from an audio and a video perspective, as the threat landscape evolves, I'm sure there'll be signals available for cyber perspective from those. But today we see a lot of the implications of audio and video really driving physical risk detection for us.
Nice. So am I understanding this correctly, that with using the data from, say, images, like you were giving the example of the ransomware screenshot that is sent, the logo that is used, it is more looking at the surface value of the data presented and not something such as steganography, like something else hidden in the imaging?
Absolutely. When we think about extracting these signals, is from the perspective of there's a threat actor that is putting out evidence to show that this is a real attack, and how can we help the analysts, the defenders, harness this signal so that they can then decide what should be their next course of action.
Okay. So with that and what you've seen so far from research development, from your product teams, what you're getting from customers, and all the information I'm sure you take in all the time on the industry, what trends do you think organizations should be zeroed in on for the next 12 to 24 months?
It is a fascinating space out there. I'd be remiss if I didn't say AI is a threat, right?
Yes.
But now that we have...
Well, bad actors are a threat.
Bad actors are a threat.
And they like to be lazy, so of course they're going to jump into this, right?
But now that we have said AI is a threat, let's actually move on to what is really happening out there. Right? So given the Dataminr solution that we have a very unique vantage point in terms of all the kind of activity that we see in the public domain. And we look at ransomware attacks, we look at leak credentials, we look at domain impersonations, we look at phishing attempts, we see fraud and scams. But these individually are just a type of threat activity. There are two big trends that we are starting to see as it relates to the cyber threat landscape, and what we see CISOs and our customers really starting to gravitate towards. One is the cyber criminal organization. That ecosystem is really coming to the forefront, right? So when you think about a ransomware attack, it's financially motivated. They want something in return that is of financial value. So you see data breaches happen. To actually do a data breach, though, you need to be able to get credentials. So now information access brokers are starting to become more and more popular.
Absolutely.
Well, how do information access brokers get some of the leaked credentials? They set up phishing campaigns, they do domain impersonation, they create fake login screens, and so there's this attack chain all the way through. But that is an ecosystem. And thinking about it from an ecosystem versus individual attack patterns is something that we are starting to see CISOs really gravitate towards. And the second thing that we are seeing is not just the attacks, but who are the attacks targeted at? So increasingly, these kind of attacks, especially ransomware attacks or even leak credential type of attacks, which eventually do lead to ransomware and data breaches, we see those increasingly being targeted towards third parties of organizations versus the organization itself. So as in Target happened 10 years ago, that playbook was written. But what we are seeing out there is threat actors have essentially updated that playbook, and they're essentially going after third parties with these tactics, because once they go after a third party, if they get leaked credentials from a third party, they could then try and actually get access to the organization that they care about. And so increasingly we are seeing this. And in fact, even if you look at Gartner's big report, third-party risk is among the top 3 concerns for CISOs. If you look at the Verizon DBIR for this year, they actually had a special section on data breaches that targeted third parties. So it is clearly becoming a top of mind concern. And so those are kind of like the kind of two big trends, right? Financially motivated actions, data breaches, leak credentials, but then being extremely targeted at third parties.
Which obviously is paying off consistently. And I remember recently in research I was doing about cybercrime as a whole. I apologize, I can't remember to give correct attribution, but the research found that if cybercrime around the world was ranked as a nation, then it would have the third highest GDP or revenue of any nation in the world. Obviously, it's being extremely effective.
It is very effective. If you think about the GDP per capita on that, it really changes the dynamic on it, right? It is becoming increasingly rampant, and part of the reason why we see them being so successful is third parties are just hard to monitor for.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It is hard enough to monitor your own organization.
Your own
Now,
thing.
can you imagine trying to extend your own detection capabilities to a third party? But they are part of your attack surface. But the only thing that you can really do right now is rely on vendor questionnaires or some kind of security ratings, which happen
Right.
every so often. But as part of your real
And you're
time,
talking about, right, so then you're talking about lag. You're talking about such
Absolutely.
historic data almost that in the moment is not going to be very helpful for the team who is trying to figure out what is their cyber resiliency program at this second based on what's coming.
Exactly.
So what do you feel that we as an industry or from Dataminr's help can really help keep pace, given that there is still a knowledgeable practitioner shortage?
Yeah, it is. It's a very complex question, a complex answer. It's like
Sorry.
it's like a PhD thesis, right? It takes me back to my academia days. But it is a multi-layered answer, and I'll kind of focus on two main elements of it, right? It is very holistic. There's many different perspectives, but I believe there's two things that everyone should be thinking about. One is just the hygiene basics.
Okay.
Make sure you do the basics right. Make sure you have effective user training. Users are part of the problem, but they're also part of the solution, right? I don't know if you saw the latest deepfake attack that was targeted at a Ferrari executive. It was reported last week, where one of the top-ranking execs at Ferrari got a deepfake call.
Okay.
Pretending to be the CEO. At first, he kind of fell for it, but then he thought there was something fishy, and then he basically asked the person who was pretending, or the deepfake, "Hey, what was the book that you just recently asked me to read?"
Oh, that's smart. Right.
Simple. It's
Smart. Yeah.
simple, but those are the kind of things that we can start thinking about, which are just basic in its nature, but it brings the user into the solution. But then on the flip side, if you start thinking about the technology component of it, AI definitely has a role to play in a very thoughtful way. How do we bring AI to bear upon the massive data challenge that we have, as well as the complex human and analytical challenge that we have? How do we relieve the drudgery? How do we
True.
relieve some of the work that analysts have to do today, which should be automated, which should be augmented by AI? And that's where Dataminr really focuses on solving that problem from a public data standpoint. There's just too much data out there. There are relevant signals that are buried in the public data. How do we use AI in a way that delivers the right signals to the right people at the right time?
Wow, I've really appreciated this. Thank you so much for joining me. And to our audience, please, if you will go ahead and visit securityweekly.com/DataminrBH, you can get more information about Dataminr. And then to get all information on the Black Hat coverage by Cyber Risk Alliance, please go to securityweekly.com/Black Hat. And thank you for joining us today.